Hello, welcome to Beyond the Boundary. This is the preview for the 2014 AFL Grand Final.
It's Sydney vs Hawthorn, Saturday afternoon at the MCG. They've met twice this year, round 8 at ANZ Stadium. Sydney won that one by 19 points. The votes from our group, Dan Hanbury got the 3, Jared McVeigh got the 2, and Josh Kennedy got the 1. And the most recent time they met was round 18 at the MCG. Hawthorn won that one by 10 points. Jared Ruffhead got the 3, Ben McGlynn got the 2, and John Lewis got the 1. Hawthorn have won 4 of the last 5 encounters. That goes back to the most recent game after the 2012 Grand Final. And we'll take a quick look at their finals path, how they got here, how these teams have come through September to get to Grand Final Day. Sydney overcame Fremantle in Week 1 before defeating North Melbourne on Friday night, while Hawthorn beat Geelong in Week 1 before hanging on against Port Adelaide on Saturday afternoon. We'll start with Sydney, boys. They defeated North Melbourne by 71 points. What do we make of that game?
It's here, boys.
I cannot wait.
Cannot wait. I mean, it's the final game of the year. By 5 o'clock Saturday, the team's reached the ultimate success, and it could be the Sydney Swans. They were fantastic on Friday night.
I think it was inevitable what happened. I think it was inevitable.
You saw it coming?
Oh, yes. I think I did. I don't know if I tipped it. But,
I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. But a part of me did think... I think all of us, a part of all of us saw that something like this might happen. And the reason for that is because North were tired as all hell after those 2 very, very gruelling encounters against the Bombers and the Cats.
Yeah. Quote, they played their grand final last week, I think.
But they were extremely tired.
Yeah.
And then to hop on a plane, I know their training loads were very light in the week leading into Sydney because they knew they were fatigued.
Yep.
And whenever you have to break into your normal routine like that, you know things are not probably going to go your way.
And Sydney took full advantage.
Oh yeah, they went up there and they got absolutely feasted upon.
They have come up against a Sydney side who is absolutely at their best. I don't think there was a single aspect of that side who could have significantly played better than what he did. One man who's a prime example of that is Luke Parker. He went at 92% efficiency, 8 tackles, 6 clearances. Absolutely instrumental for him.
How he missed the All-Australian side, I do not know.
Absolutely absurd in my view. But anyway.
He needs to file a police report because he was robbed.
I like it, Rico.
So was Sam Jacobs. But anyway, he was fantastic.
What did you make of his game?
He's just an absolute stay. He kicked, 3 goals, I think it was.
Yep. 26 disposals, 14 contested. As you said, 92%.
At 92%, that's ridiculous.
That's phenomenal.
That's ridiculous. And in fact, Dane Beams actually tweeted, quite humorous, AFL players do like to get into it, but Dane Beams tweeted saying how Luke Parker didn't make the AA team is just rubbish.
Watching him on Friday night.
Well, one of his biggest strengths is his marking. For his size, his marking is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of a brick of a head, doesn't he?
He does.
A very strong head.
He's one of the best your boy Jimmy Bartell's very good.
Yeah.
But he's one of the best overhead marking midfielders in the competition.
I'd say Fife is number 1, and then I'd probably have either him or Rory Sloane.
Yeah.
Because they're both very, very good taking those overhead.
Another man who was very, very good was Lance Franklin. He finished with 11 marks, 5 of those were
And just
contested.
before we go to Lance Franklin, Nick, who was it that you took instead of Luke Parker again?
Do we have to?
Ariel Steinberg.
I got to do it every time, I'm sorry.
On to Lance Franklin. He took 11 marks, 5 of them were contested. 6 inside 50s, 5 goals, 5 score assists. But the stat that Josh loves is 16 score involvements.
16.
What did
16?
What did I say last week about this?
What did you say?
I said that Lance Franklin would not have to eat dinner before he came to the game. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Because he was going to feast.
Because he was going to feast on the North Melbourne defence.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did, because they're just pathetic, that North defence. That was going to happen. Danaher kicks 4 on you, Hawkins kicks 5 on you, and then Franklin could have kicked 10 on you, but he didn't. He chose to give 5 of those away.
He had the game on a string.
Yeah.
Lance Franklin just absolutely did what he wanted.
He was best on ground by an absolute mile.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's something that I said would happen, but everyone probably saw it coming. You know what I mean? It was just something that was obvious.
These have come from 23 disposals as the key forward. You know,
he had the third most touches in Sydney.
Yeah, it's
boys
speechless.
He's probably in career best form right now.
Just quickly,
right now he is.
Has his season this year been better than any others at Hawthorn?
No,
I know he kicked his 100.
No. Because you've got to look at the whole season. His season did not start getting freakish until about just after the halfway point.
But
after that halfway point,
his form right now is the best form he's ever been.
That's what I said. That's what I agree with. That's what I said before. But I do not think he's had the best season.
His season as a 22 games plus finals.
Correct. No.
Probably not.
He's probably his second best, maybe, considering how good he is right now.
Moving on to Josh Kennedy, another man who's absolutely key for that Sydney side. He had 17 contested possessions. He loves his contested ball, 7 tackles and 8 clearances. He was brilliant.
Well, one of 3 former Hawks coming against his former side in the grand final.
4 inside 50s, a score assist. Well, he was the kind of guy that was just sitting in the barracks, and he didn't really get a go because that was the midfield with the likes of Richie Vandenberg and those kind of Sam Mitchell, and they had a very established midfield at the time. So he didn't really get a go at it, but he jumped across to Sydney, and he's just been he'll be a Hall of Famer for Sydney.
He's your footballer's footballer for me.
He is.
You see here he went at 67%.
Yeah,
but he doesn't have the greatest skills. But he just does the grunt work
well,
that every side needs.
Yes, and Nick mentioned his contested ball. He's probably the number 1 contested ball winner in the game.
Yep.
Actually, at the time, the Ablett was still playing. Ablett was number 1.
Yeah.
But obviously, since he's gone out, he'll finish the year as the number 1 contested ball winner.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that occurs to me, if there's a loose ball, he'll probably wait for a crowd to gather before he gets it. Because he loves the contested ball.
Probably got a better chance of breaking through.
His environment.
He loves the contested ball that much. Yep.
He's the type of guy that will blossom in a grand final because he'll be contested as all hell.
Oh, yeah.
Another man that loves a contested ball is Kieran Jack. He had 5 clearances and 5 inside 50s. He was great for them as well.
Absolutely. He's had a fantastic year at Kieran Jack. He's just a fantastic footballer. To come from an NRL background, to adapt the game well. He's now the captain of the football club.
Yeah,
he just leads that side so brilliantly.
He epitomises what that club's about, doesn't he? Just tough as nails, doing anything that's necessary for the success of the team.
Yeah,
and playing as many different roles as necessary for the team. I mean, through his career, he's played as a tagger, an inside mid, an outside mid, and as a small forward.
Yeah.
So it's just like you were saying, just the club.
Adam Goode's another man who's done a lot of things for Sydney. 82% efficiency, 6 inside 50s, and he kicked 3 goals.
How about that for a game 150?
Yeah, 350.
3.
Well, this is what I find funny. He's
definitely not 150. I
like Sam Newman. I find him very funny. Not many people do, but I do.
Oh no, I think a lot of people do.
Oh, anyway, he said players don't live for milestone games. I think you only have to look at Adam Goode's
I think Adam Goode's lifted for this month. Jeez,
did he?
Watching him at the end, he wanted another goal so badly. Franklin was trying to hand pass him one.
He did. He was absolutely fantastic. And towards the end of the year, before this game, we were thinking he's done at the end of the year.
Well, the last 2 years, we've been thinking, he's been injured. He got injured in that grand final and couldn't really have the influence he wanted. He's been up and down. He's never been one of those real key men that were vital to the side. But on Friday night, we saw him, like every other player on that side, stand up and play almost to his full potential.
I think Adam Goode's, if they win, you can almost bookmark that he'll retire after the game.
Yep.
If they lose, maybe go on.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The door's definitely open.
But 75% I'd say he'll retire, regardless of the result.
Moving on, another man who was vital on Friday night, Vinay, was Gary Rowan.
Oh, goodness, yes. This man, he's taken a while, hasn't he? No, we shouldn't say that. I mean, he did have a spate of injuries.
He had a very serious leg injury.
Yes, and he did have a very, as I mentioned, some serious injuries. And when he was drafted, his biggest highlight was his pace. So we all wondered, leg injury, is that going to affect his pace? It probably hasn't. He's probably slowed down a little bit, but he's still very quick comparatively to the other AFL players. Excuse me.
You right there, mate? Need a drink of water? Where's your drink?
I think we owe John Longmire a what am I trying to say here? A thank you.
Yeah.
Because Gary
for getting the best out of his
life. Yes, exactly, Nick.
Watching him in that qualifying final, this game on Friday was a polar opposite to that.
Oh, well, he's played on a wing, failed. Played in a forward line as a small forward, failed. Played on a half forward, no. And now he's come off half back.
Well, you could say at the start of the year, or midway through the year, that Rowan's career was teetering.
Yeah.
Teetering. Longmire's thrown him to half-back and completely changing around. Okay, he didn't have the best game of the qualifying final, but this prelim final, you see the talent this kid has.
Absolutely brilliant.
And this position suits him. This run-off half-back is just absolutely
He's a pick six.
Yeah.
And what I like about John Longmire is sometimes he's just simple with his coaching. He says, look at the guy, look at what he's good at doing, and put him in that position that accords.
Yeah. Gary Rowan on Friday, we should mention, 6 inside 50s. The thing that really did it for me was his 10-1 percenters. He was diving for smothering handballs, stuff like that.
He is that kind of player, yeah.
Now we better move on. Kurt Tippett played a bit of a cameo role up forward. He kicked 4 goals, took 9 marks and 3 contested. So still a very good game as a forward, but this is as the second man to Lance Franklin, who we've already talked about, was absolutely dominating. And Ted Richards finished the game down back with 12 1%ers. He was brilliant for them as well.
Absolutely. Well, Kurt Tippett, he loves a prelim final. He kicked 4 in the prelim final against the Hawks when he was at the Crows in 2012. He's kicked another 4 against North Melbourne on the weekend.
Does he like a grand final? That's the question.
Well, this is his first one.
This is his first one.
So this is what Sydney brought him to the club for, to play in the big games, to perform in the big games.
Yep.
He's performed in one. He's got to perform in another one if Sydney are to win. Ted Richards.
12 1%ers.
Yeah.
A Monty to play on Big Rough.
We'll discuss that a little bit later, but you'd think that's the obvious one. And one man I just wanted to mention, probably the only man who didn't stand out in the Sydney side was Jerry McVeigh, who had 15. So there's room for improvement for this side that's won their prelim by 71 points.
Absolutely. And just one quick thing, 12 goals between Buddy, Tippett and Goods on the weekend. If that happens again, it's game over.
That's what you want to see.
Now, boys, moving on to Hawthorn.
Yeah, they defeated Port Adelaide by 3 points on the weekend. They just held on, possibly put the cue in the rack a little bit early there.
Yeah.
I tell you what, they would be thanking their almighty stars, the Hawks, because if they lost that, as I've mentioned in News and Views, if Port had won that after being 28 points down with 9 minutes to go, I would have never watched AFL again, because
yes, you would have.
I've already seen everything there is to see. I'll never see anything more impressive.
That set the peak. That set the highest point.
But having said that, would have, should have, could have. They're here. They're here in the grand final, and they deserve to be.
Absolutely.
Luke Hodge was absolutely instrumental for them, especially in the dying stages there, helping them get over the line. He finished the game with 10 marks, 5 tackles. He was brilliant.
What I noticed about Luke Hodge,
Yep.
it's 6 contested possessions.
When you think of Luke Hodge, you think bandage on his head, crash and passion to the packs, getting those clearances. But 6 uncontested possessions, he's played sort of more of that...
6 contested possessions.
6 contested possessions, sorry, so little. He's played more of that Hawthorn spread, that general off half-back that we talk about so much. That's really dictated the play there.
Yeah, well, he's a star in so many ways. He's an excellent leader, and he just does so many different things that you got to admire.
Yep.
And as we go through the Hawthorn players, the viewer at home can actually realise that every one of these players can do more than just one thing.
Yeah.
And Al Clarkson has built that side so perfectly, because every single player in that team can do more than just their position demands of them.
I think you'll see the most successful teams are like that. Majority of players, 21 of the players can play 2, 3, 4 different roles.
But Hawthorn, as Vinay is saying, you'd think they do it best.
I think they mastered it.
Yeah. Well, another man that has more than one trick up his sleeve is Will Langford.
Oh, yeah.
He went head-to-head with Boak as a bit of a tagging role. And you look at Boak's stats, you see he's had 33 disposals. You almost think Boak's won that contest. But then you look at Will Langford, the run-with role, he's had 6 tackles, 10 clearances from 29 disposals. He's almost bettered his opponent there.
Absolutely. Well, Travis Boak was best on ground at half-time.
Yep.
And Al Clarkson has sent Will Langford to Boak and said, shut this guy down.
Yep.
But what Will Langford's done is shut Boak down at the same time and won his own
from
ball.
That point on, bettered him throughout the game.
I mean, you forget this kid's playing...
only his 19th game.
19th game,
yeah. And the kind of clutch moments that he's had this season...
Well, against Geelong, I think he kicked 2 or 3 vital goals there.
And even in the first quarter, I mean, clutch, you think at the end of the game, he's kicked a clutch goal and stuff like that. But at the start, Port Adelaide were all over him.
They had all the play.
And he's kicked a crucial goal.
I see this kid as a leader, is what I see him as. Because every time, have you noticed that they're down and out, or seemingly, behind the 8 ball, he is the one that his spirit just shines through and he drags them back into it.
Yeah, reminds me a lot of his dad. I mean, I wasn't alive when his dad was playing, but I've seen a lot of tapes.
Seen him play, yep.
And he reminds me a lot of his dad.
Well, I honestly think they're sitting on a future captain here, Will Langford, because Hawthorn tend to pick their captains based on that courage and, that grit, like Luke Hodge.
Yep.
And Langford fits that to a T.
Yep.
Guys, speaking of men that fit that mould, Sam Mitchell, 8 tackles he finished this game with. You want your big players to stand up in the big games, and he certainly did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this guy, for me, is underrated. He's not rated enough around the football community. Yep. The work he does inside and outside is just absolutely outstanding.
Yep. He's a nuggety little fella. We love that word. He reminds me a bit of a beaver.
We should get a nuggety counter.
We really need to get a nuggety counter for next season.
He's a very, very good player, as you mentioned. And, he's mastered his role in the midfield and his role of half-back.
Yep.
And he's been very good. The only thing I can see about Mitchell and Langford, the only possible dint, is that they both went at under 60% disposal efficiency.
Yep.
And against a side like Sydney, who have been known to drop, a Malcheski or a Shaw just behind the stoppage.
They'll see that and they'll counter that.
Yes, so that is something that, just maybe the quick clearance kick may need to be something.
Well, sometimes you think with contested players that you can expect to lower disposal efficiency because of so many clearances and stuff like that. But under 60% that's getting on the really, really bad stage.
Oh yeah, like very bad.
Yeah, and that's something they would really want to focus on to improve. Jared Ruffhead,
Big Ruff.
He's one of the most important players in the competition. Bar very few. He kicked 6 goals on the weekend. Absolutely terrific.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. You shut up. He was enormous against Port Adelaide.
I haven't even said anything yet. That's how much we've gotten to him.
Yeah, you have. He's quickly becoming one of my favourite players in the competition.
I don't doubt that.
He's creeping up. He's creeping up towards Stevie J. He's
creeping up towards the Sean Burgoynes and Sam Mitchell.
Sorry, Josh. We'll let you keep going.
Go ahead. You're right. Yep.
Nah, move on.
Yeah.
Well, but seriously, I'll reiterate something I said in News and Views.
Yep.
I'd pay the same amount of money to Jared Ruffhead as Sydney are to Lance Franklin.
Yep.
I'm serious about it.
Well, he's a star. I don't question your decision there because he is a star.
Yep. Moving on to another man who's an absolute star, Jordan Lewis. For 3 quarters, he was absolutely dominating in this game. He's had a knee clash with, I think, Matt Spanger it was.
Matt Spanger, the meat train.
During the 3rd quarter. I think he was subbed off just before 3/4 time, or at 3/4 time. But up until that point, he was going at 91% efficiency. He had 6 clearances and 4 score assists. He was absolutely dominating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he'll play. He'll play. There is no way Jordan Lewis is missing out on this game.
Well, I don't think they win if he doesn't play. He just has to.
He was there, and he was the architect when they were down and out, and they were missing some of their biggest star players. He was the lifeblood of that club for a little period.
Absolutely.
There is no way that he will miss out on the grandest day.
He'd be almost unable to walk with that corky that he suffered if he doesn't get up.
Yeah.
Knowing the kind of guy he is, I reckon he'd still want to play.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd still give his absolute 100% and say that I can still best some of the guys you've got sitting in the barracks.
Well, he's your token one player that the media follow around all week with an injury.
You see that every year. In the past year, we've seen Steve Johnson, a famous one. But that same year, on the other end of the scale, you saw Ben Reid and Darren Jolly under injury clouds, and they both got found out in that grand final.
Yeah.
So Hawthorn will be running that tightrope going, do we play and do we don't? Obviously, of course, if there's any inkling of fitness, he's going to line up in that side. But you just sort of run the risk of having an underdone player there. Not always
Matt Spanger, he's just a big meat train. There are specific trains that carry trucks on them. They're massive. That's what he is. He's just a train with trucks on it.
He's the one that's put Lewis in this situation.
Yes.
Anyway, moving on. David Hale, he's copped a lot of flack this year, but he finished this game with 6 tackles, 5 clearances, played very well.
And he booted a little sausage.
Booted a sausage?
He did. He kicked himself a nice little goal, did Hale.
Well, he was dropped at this midway through the season. Yep. He fought himself back really well. Midway through the year, Hawks fans were saying McAvoy and Segal are the way to go because they were the informed ruckman. But Hale's gone back to the VFL, worked on his game, he's come back and he's responded brilliantly.
A credit to him because he's getting old and it would have been easy for him to just say, oh, well, I've run my course, I've won a good granny. And
he's looked like a 40-year-old for about the last 15 years.
But he's very good at super coach. And so I think his strategy, he's used that strategy in real life, he's applied it to his real life situation, and he strategized himself into some form.
We've plummeted to super coaches.
He's made some internal trades in his own mind.
I can't say I've ever thought of it that way, but interesting point for that.
We consider all perspectives here. We don't leave anything to chance.
Another man who doesn't leave anything to chance is Isaac Smith. He finished this game with 7 marks and 4 tackles. Hawthorn's wingmen are just so dangerous.
Oh, bloody. You talk about Isaac Smith.
He's a barometer for them.
I'm going to quickly just join him up with one other player because these two are almost carbon copies, except they exist on opposite ends of the ground.
I reckon that might be Brad Hill.
It is Brad Hill. Together, they had, I'm just going to do the math quickly now, 31 disposals at 80% disposal efficiency, an average of. Together they had 6 inside 50s and they both had over 15, as in combined, they would have had over 15 score involvements.
Yep.
They are just phenomenal and
you can think of them as stop. You can think of them as one player. They're just,
you can.
There's just 2 of them. And
you can.
No other team has a combination of wingmen like Hawthorn do. Possibly Cyril will be back into this side this week, which we'll talk about in a sec. But these 2 are just so vital when they're on.
Well, we spoke about that last week, how crucial it is to have 2 players like this in your side.
Yeah.
I mean, not many other sides, if any, have two
genuine wingmen who can perform at a higher level.
That are 100-metre players.
Oh, yeah.
I've said that time and time before.
Yeah, it's the guy that can run a 50
kick 50 metres.
Yes.
Correct. I'll keep reiterating it. It's so important.
One more I want to mention quickly before I go and do Liam Shields is Matt Suckling.
Yeah.
He came back in the first quarter. I reckon everyone for their money would have been saying they brought him back too early. He's not ready.
Yep.
But in that second quarter, he came out and he proved everyone wrong. He had 3 touches at quarter time. At halftime, he was sitting on 10 disposals and a goal.
Yeah.
and he was dangerous.
Just worked his way back into it.
Oh yeah, he ended up with 21 disposals, I believe, at a very high efficiency, and he's a weapon, and he will continue to be a weapon. Finally, Liam Shields had 18 disposals, 10 of which were contested.
And he actually beat Hamish Hartlett.
Oh yeah, well he had 8 tackles, 7 clearances, and 5 inside 50s. Hamish Hartlett had 1 less disposal, and a few less tackles and clearances as well.
Yeah.
So he's legitimately, it's almost as though Hamish Hartlett was tagging him.
Yeah.
You could make that argument because he played much better than him.
Well, I'm releasing my unsung hero of the year next week.
He might just get it.
Something new.
And Hamish Hartlett is no mug.
No.
Let's just put that out there.
But let's just say Liam Shields is right up there.
Right up there.
Oh.
Few selection dilemmas.
You're going to sing for him, aren't you? He's not going to be unsung anymore.
There's some talk that Jonathan Seglar might be dropped for McAvoy.
Yeah, well, McAvoy didn't play in the VFL today,
Yep.
today being Sunday. McAvoy was pulled out. Segler didn't have the greatest game against Matthew Logan.
18 hit-outs I think he had as the number 2 ruckman.
Yeah, so not
big boy
great.
McAvoy.
Brad Sewell also pulled out, so that's interesting.
Yep.
I think Hawthorn did lack a little bit of grunt in that midfield yesterday, so maybe he might come back in. And obviously Cyril, I think, will play, but he'll play as a sub.
That would probably be the smart move there.
Just one quick thing. 12 hit-outs by non-ruckman for Hawthorn. They love that third man up. Luke Hodge had 7 of them.
Yeah.
Jordan Lewis had 2. Luke Bruce, Isaac Smith, and Jonathan Sipkin all had 1.
It's because they've got so many tall midfielders, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jordan Lewis is a 190 plus midfielder. Isaac Smith is probably a 190 plus midfielder.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Luke Hodge. Well, he's 190 plus. He plays in the midfield every now and then. So
Well, Sydney will be very aware of it. You can make sure of that.
Yeah.
Righto, boys, moving on to some of the matchups for this game.
Yep. Well, the big one, obviously, is who goes to Franklin and who goes to Tippett. The options there, obviously, are Brian Lake and Gibson.
Yeah, well, I think Lake will go to Franklin. Gibson's obviously known Franklin quite well.
Yep.
They're best mates off the field, but they have to put their friendship aside for this game, obviously. But
You'd want to hope so.
But I think Lake's the man to go with him, to be honest.
What do you think, Vinay?
yeah, look, I think Gibson had him last time.
And Franklin kicked 5 last time.
I think he
played
kicked
it.
5.
Yep.
So yeah, he took Gibson to the proverbial cleaners. But maybe it is Brian Lake's chance to have a go. He did a very good job on Jay Schultz, mind you.
Well, we remember this game last year. Brian Lake stood up. He won the Norm Smith medal.
Oh yeah. Well, he does. Well, it's why he came to Hawthorn, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think Brian Lake, he did a very good job against Jay Schultz. I want to mention that. He kept Schultz very quiet. Only had the 2 goals, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Or the 1 goal could have even been.
1 or 2.
Schultz was kept very quiet the whole night, and Lake was the man who took the credit for that. Maybe natural to put him on Franklin. The one thing that worries me was that Schultz was beating Lake on the lead far too many times, and Franklin is very good on the lead. So I just worry that Franklin might be a bit too good for him.
Well, Tippett kicks a lot of goals from the goal square, and you think of Lake as the kind of body-to-body contested player.
That you want in the goal scorer.
That's a fair comment.
Well, looking at that aspect, maybe Tippett is the more logical.
I agree with you, Nick.
Well,
I agree with you.
It's a fair comment.
I'm not sure if that would then benefit Tippett more or whatever. But
Well, I don't think Lake can try and outmuscle Franklin because although Lake's a very strong person, so is Franklin. I think the best bet is Gibson spoiling everything that Franklin gets near.
Yeah.
On the lead, he's got good closing speed. Josh Gibson, he positions himself well. And like Nick mentioned very, very correctly, Lance Franklin can kick goals from 55 out on an angle, no problem.
Yeah.
But Tippett, you wouldn't back so confidently to do that. So maybe have Lake, engaging him physically and have Gibson just spoiling everything that Franklin gets near.
I think we'll see with Lake and Gibson if Tippett's in the goal square, Lake will take him.
Yeah.
Lake will want to stay as far into the back half as possible.
If Tippett wants to push up the ground, but Franklin's the man you expect to push up the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Franklin sits out of the goal square and plays out of the goal square, you'll see Lake take him. So I think it'll be a bit of a teamwork aspect there.
Now, another big job. Who goes to Josh Kennedy? Will it be Langford? Maybe Shields?
I think Langford.
I think Langford too. Because Langford has taken inside ball winners in the past few games. I think did he take Selwood in the qualifying?
In the qualifying final,
yes.
I think it was Shields.
Okay, well that's interesting then because that means Shields went to the inside ball winner in Selwood, but then against Port Adelaide he went to the outside ball winner in Hartlett.
But Langford, as we've seen, has been playing more as the head-to-head role. He's not really doing that lockdown tagging role anymore.
So in that case it may be ideal because I think maybe JPK is the kind of guy who fits in that Selwood class of players.
Yeah.
You can't actually stop them from getting a lot of the ball.
So then who does, if Shields doesn't go to Kennedy or if Langford doesn't go to Kennedy, who do they play on? Is it a Malcheski, the halfbacker there?
I think, Shields will go to the outside runner.
But then there's also a Hanbury or a Parker, as you mentioned. So
I honestly think it has to be Malcheski because his setup of halfback can murder you if you don't keep him accountable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although having said that, Luke Parker
In some blistering form.
in
at the
some
moment.
blisteringly scary form.
Well, at times in the last 3-4 weeks, he's just gone
Unchecked.
unchecked.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you're
And
the
he
second or
hurts you.
third midfielder, the outside midfielder. You have that license to run like that. So
Yeah.
You've got to put someone on him because not only does he get the ball, he kicks goals.
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of them too, like 3 goals. So
big decision for Hawthorn to make there. Onto the Sydney tagger, obviously Harry Cunningham. He has to go to one of maybe Isaac Smith or Brad Hill.
Yeah, he played on Brent Harvey on the weekend, who's a quick outside runner. Doesn't get a lot of inside ball as Brent Harvey, so
Yep.
you'd think he'd probably go to, I'd say Brad Hill.
Yep.
I'd say Brad Hill's probably the more dominant of the two of Isaac Smith and...
Having said that, Isaac Smith was better on the weekend.
He
so
was,
even
yeah.
better.
But I
recent
honestly,
form.
I agree with Josh in that I think Brad Hill. Actually, I don't know. You're literally splitting hairs here because I'm thinking of incidences where Brad Hill has ripped a team apart, but then I'm remembering the times when Isaac Smith has done the exact
Probably in the same game.
same. Yep. So
But he's a sure thing to go to either one of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Another big battle in this game. It'll be Mike Pike from Sydney up against whichever two play from Hale, Segler or McIntyre.
well, Sydney's ruck situation is so odd for me because they've got one ruckman in Mike Pike,
Yep.
and he's not the best ruckman. I
Well,
mean,
This is what I say can work in Hawthorn's favour, unless Sydney brings another tool in. But either Tippett or Reid is going to have to do the second ruck work. This would allow either Lake or Gibson to come as a third man in
Yep.
against Franklin.
what I don't get though is Mike Pike. He's not a mobile ruckman particularly.
Yeah.
He's not the best tap ruckman particularly. This year he hasn't really kicked many goals down forward. He hasn't been as good.
But he's serviceable. He's getting that
He's
job
serviceable.
done. He can consistently
He's
play
just-
at an average to above average
He
basis.
dips his hand in a number of different pools, is what he does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Kurt Tippett, just on your point there, Josh, he did have 12 hitouts in the weekend, so he's playing more of a second ruckman role, as John
Yeah.
Longmire said he would. So you'd expect him, that's only 6 less than Segler finished with on the weekend. So, he's up there to play that cameo role.
And now with Sam Reid, who's in a little bit of doubt, I'd still expect him to
You'd
play.
expect him to play, yep.
Yeah, but you'd almost throw Reid into the ruck now instead of Tippett and make Hawthorn's defence accountable and not
Yep.
allow either Lake or Gibson to play that chop-off role on Lance Franklin. So
Probably a fair point. Up forward for the Hawks, Jared Ruffhead. Do we think Ted Richards is the obvious choice?
Yeah.
Yep, and that leaves Jack Gunston with Grundy for company.
Yeah, well, Jack Gunston had a pretty quiet game.
Oh
against
yeah, it
Port
took him
Adelaide.
a while to kick it.
Yeah.
His first goal came courtesy of a very controversial off the ball
It was there.
free kick.
It was there.
If that was there, then
Up
so
for
were
debate.
20 other incidents. But he did get it and he did convert, as we all knew he would.
Yeah.
But he will have a tough proposition in Heath Grundy. He's a very physical customer,
Well, last year
One-
he kicked 4 goals in the grand final
Yep.
to Jack Gunston.
including the first one, and he was very, very close to the Norm Smith. He had, I think, 19 touches and
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
a few
one
scores.
vote away, I think.
Yep.
It was.
Yep. And one other matchup that we do need to mention: Luke Bruce will have Nick Smith for company.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The 2 All-Australians,
Yep.
All-Australian small forward,
That-
Australian defender.
That is going to be an absolutely mouth-watering matchup.
Well, what Nick's alluding to is literally we've got the All-Australian small forward, one of them,
against the
against
All-Australian small defender.
exactly.
Well, another one I want to point out, going to the other end, is Ben McGlynn
Yep.
on either a Matthew Suckling or Grant Birchall.
I reckon has to be Suckling.
Yep.
Because Birchall, he's a good player, but he's damaging.
He's got. I mean, McGlynn's obviously a very small player, and a lot of people are going to have a height advantage on him.
Yep.
Birchall's obviously got more of a height advantage than what Suckling would. So I think Suckling will be the logistical matchup.
obvious.
That, and also I just think Suckling's more damaging than Birchall, to be honest. I mean, Birchall's been a very good footballer. He's obviously still a very good footballer.
Yeah.
But I just see Suckling as doing so much more damage. I mean, you mentioned a 100-metre player. For me, he's a 120-metre player because he runs 50 and he kicks at 70. So he's the kind of guy that you've got to be manning up on.
All right, boys. Moving on to our predictions. It's the last game of the season we have to predict for. The most important game of this season.
I can't believe we're here, Josh.
I can't believe we're here either. I'm excited.
And
I'm excited to hear who you guys think is going to win
Boys,
this game and why.
the grand final is it's the kind of game of the year where you see players so desperate.
Yep.
I mean, I was watching the replay of the 2006 grand final. Yeah.
Reminiscing.
Yeah, and there was this, when in the final dying minutes, Sydney bombed it inside 50. Obviously, they were 3 points down against West Coast
Yep.
with God knows how long. And the ball went in. Literally every player known on the ground went up for that mark with no regard for their personal safety.
That is why it is so hard to predict the result of a grand final, because you cannot measure the ability of a player to stand up on that
it's
special
unbelievable. I mean, you remember Dan Hanbury's mark going back with the flight?
Yeah.
Unbelievably courageous mark.
Leo Barry, 2005.
I mean, these players will do anything. I mean, they all just jump into each other knowing they could incur, season-ending injury.
Having said that, who do we think is going to put their body on the line a little bit more and get the chocolates?
What do you call it again? The last dance or something?
The big dance.
The big dance. That's a good little...
I reckon Vinay wants to kick us off.
Yeah,
I like that. Look, guys, I think this is one of the most evenly matched grand finals we've seen in years.
Yep.
In years gone by. I think these two teams, a hair will split them. Everything is on even ground. I can't see one side having an advantage over the other. In terms of whether that be coach, whether that be midfield, forward line, defence, spirit, everything is matched. I think it's going to be a very close battle. And I think that Hawthorn have got a few ins coming in. A few. And I say that because there could be 3.
Yep.
And I think changes like that do tend to tamper with the side's confidence. And they do tend to tamper with the side's structure and the way they operate.
Yep.
So I think that may make a difference. But keep in mind, I'm clutching at straws here because that's the only way to tip in this game. You've got to clutch at straws. So having clutched at those straws, I think Sydney will get the job done. Kurt Tippett and Lance Franklin are big moment men. They turn up when the moment demands it. And I reckon they'll kick 10 goals between them. Actually, that's too much. 8 goals between them. 8 goals between them. Oh, that's still probably too much. Around 6 goals between them.
Righto.
And Sydney will end up getting the job done by a single point.
Norm Smith.
Norm Smith for me will be Luke Parker, who is a future Brownlow medalist.
First goal.
First goal for me is Kieran Jack, who is a future Brownlow medalist.
It's just gone for
it's true.
complete set there. Well, looking at this game, I take Vinay's point that you're splitting hairs to try and pick a winner.
Oh, yeah. What's your hair, Nick?
They're just so evenly matched. The hair that I am choosing to split. In the prelim finals, Sydney has come up against a tired but desperate opponent in North Melbourne. They've won that game by 71 points. Absolutely cruised through it. The game was won in the first quarter. They've just walked all over them. Hawthorn have come up against a tired, desperate opponent in Port Adelaide. They've had a tough encounter. They've got it done by 3 points in the end. They would have been desperate at the end to try and, just stop that from going anywhere near the forward line and putting every little bit of energy into making that grand final. That points to me that Sydney are going to be so much fresher. As you say, Sydney will be more settled. Hawthorn still aren't sure who's the better player, who to pick over who. Whereas Sydney know this is the side that can get it done. I'm going to say Sydney by 15 points.
Oh.
Lance Franklin, last week I said he kicked 6 and he kicked 5. This week I'm going the same way again. I think he is the man. He is the man of the moment and he's going to get it done. I'm going to say 6 goals again. And Luke Parker, I think, will win the Norm Smith. After this game, he'll be regarded as one of the top 10 players in the AFL.
What about your first goal scorer?
First goal, I will say, Buddy. Lance Franklin.
Buddy. The friend.
The crowd will go absolutely nuts.
Joe Rickard.
Well, I see Hawthorn's structure and game plan working a lot better against the Sydney Swans than what it did against Port Adelaide.
Okay.
Port Adelaide's run was too much for Hawthorn at times, whereas Sydney's a more congested, contested, and slower side.
Correct.
Which suits Hawthorn's game. Hawthorn aren't the quickest side, Sydney aren't the quickest side.
Yep.
So it's a perfect matchup, as you said earlier. I'm personally tipping Hawthorn.
Right.
Surprise, surprise to you two. But I just think when the moment comes, they know how to win.
Yep.
And personally, both teams deserve to win because they've got to the stage. But I think Hawthorn deserves it more. They had a lot of injuries throughout the year. I think they deserve it a bit more to win this because they battled hard. They still won.
And they still finished second on the ladder.
They lost their coach for 5 weeks.
Yep.
Brendan Bolton took over. I think they deserve it more than probably what Sydney do. I'll be tipping the Hawks by 7 points. Your
Norm Smith, yeah.
My Norm Smith. Luke Hodge.
Oh, he's gone with the Luke.
Two-time Luke Hodge.
Norm Smith medalist.
And my first goal kicker will be one a bit out of the ordinary.
Okay.
I'll go Nick Melchesky.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Bit of a different one. The last goal kicker.
I really like that one, actually. I do like that.
Well, boys, 2 of us have tipped Sydney. 1 of us have tipped Hawthorn. Let us know in the comment section below who are you tipping, by how much and why. We want to hear. We genuinely want to know. Thanks very much for watching our match previews throughout the year. We will be back next week for the Grand Final review show. That's our last regular show of the year. And then after that, of course, we'll have coverage of the trade period, coverage of the draft, and then get into pre-season and right back into it next season. Anyway, boys, Vinay, thanks very much for being part of the match previews throughout the year.
It was a pleasure, as it was Valiant. I'm just going to quickly relay your thanks to them. I'm going to get your thanks and handball it off to Valiant because... Goal assist, because they've been excellent. And they've assisted us in kicking many goals.
Yep.
Many personal and metaphorical goals.
Josh, thanks very much to you as well. Thanks to Justin Westhoff, even though he couldn't help us out this week. And make sure you check out News and Views. There's a link to it at the end of the video.
Danique, you as well, mate. You've been fantastic. With all the graphics you put up on the show, you do the run sheet every week. You've been fantastic.
Yep. So it's almost a tear-worthy moment.
Boys, it's finally here. Good luck to the Swans and the Hawks. It's going to be a ripping contest. Make sure, as Nick said, tune in next week. Grand Final review, season review. We won't stop. We go through the pre-season, the off-season, the trade, draft. We are going all year long, so cannot wait. The big dance is here. Good luck to the Swans and Hawks. We will see you next week. Go Hawks!